our intuition will be silenced no more. This is the podcast called Heard It All Before. Wow, the Tartarian Empire. Welcome, hello, I'm Chantelle. Welcome to episode 3 of Heard It All Before. So what happens when history does not just get rewritten, but it gets erased completely? Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Heard It All Before. Today, we're going to be digging deep into the Tartarian Empire. Now this one's a very, very interesting part of history that I only discovered recently. I gotta say, shout out to the Bully Slayer on TikTok. His videos are absolutely hilarious. Oh, you son of a... You got me now. His videos are so funny, so if you do not follow him, check him out. He goes a lot into Tartarian Empire. Hello, my curious minds and my critical thinkers. So first of all, what was Tartaria? Back in the days, in the 1500s to 1800s, there was a part of the map called the Great Tartary or Tartaria. So by the late 1800s, Tartaria completely disappeared from maps. Very strange. The mainstream history narrative is that it was just a vague name for a region in Russia. But why is it so prominent? Why is there so much mention of it? And why was it on all these maps? So the theory that we have out there that a few of us have uncovered and people looking into is that Tartaria was a global civilization well advanced to what we are now. But the elites covered this up. So the main question is about Tartaria, where it randomly disappeared from maps in the late 1800s, is why? Why did this disappear from maps? So people are saying that the Tartarian Empire was an absolutely advanced civilization to what we have today, and the elites wiped them out, erased them from our history and our knowledge, to obviously push their other agendas and motives to control the people. So, what is the Tartarian Empire? Have a look at this.
You want to understand more about Tartaria? That's good. That's real good. Alright, listen to this. So, the Tartarian Empire was an advanced civilization which once ruled in what we know today as Russia, but also span out to the Americas. But when the empire was destroyed, they was removed from history and wiped off the map. This is the official Tartarian flag. They are the ones that built buildings like this, and like this, and yes, buildings like this. They are known for building buildings with Antiquitech, which is a natural atmospheric energy conductor which produces free energy. Well, if you knew that in the past we had free energy, electricity and advanced technology, it would make you question everything we've been told about his story.
Now again, what's even more strange, in the late 1800s there was a massive mud flood where buildings, cities, entire cities completely disappeared under mud. So that's why when you look at some old buildings today, you will actually come to see and find that they have windows and doors at like the basements of the street leading to nowhere. It's very interesting to say the least. Yeah, I do question that. Thank you. So my intuition's telling me, why would they build doors and windows that are sealed off on the ground floor? What purpose does that have? You tell me, put it in the comments. Why would they build doors and windows that are sealed off completely? Any construction builders, anyone that works in design and build watching this video, please put in the chat why they would build buildings like that. I'm very curious to hear what your take is. Now the Tartarian empires had technology obviously more advanced than what we were told. We were told in the 1800s, generally speaking, they had like a hammer and chisel. They were very primitive to compare to what we are today. But if we explore the evidence of what they had in the 1800s, look at the technology and tell me what you think of this.
He unveiled his most mysterious creation, a round, polished board that hovered a full 6 inches above the earth, held aloft by some unseen magnetic force.
Did you know that electric cars have been around for over a century? That's right, long before sleek, high-tech designs and fast charging stations, electric cars were rolling through cities and streets, offering an alternative to steam engines or horse-drawn carriages.
That's right, we're seeing electric cars. We're seeing scooters and we're seeing, people using hoverboards and all this very, very advanced stuff for that time. My question is this about the electric cars. Why did we forget about electric cars for pretty much over a century? Why were they using electric cars and they were running fine, they had batteries, and then suddenly said, look, let's forget electric vehicles, go to fossil fuels. It's just not really making sense. And then suddenly now, oh yeah, electric cars are the best thing again, we're bringing them back. It's a bit of a strange one if you ask me. Let's bring it to Great Britain. There's a lot of buildings in the UK that are likened to have been massive in the Tartarian Empire. So to name a few, up in Liverpool, you've got St George's Hall. You have in Manchester, you have the Manchester Town Hall. Down in London now, you've got Crystal Palace, which was known as one of the main areas for the one of the great fairs. So Crystal Palace was built in 1851 for the Great Exhibition. It was a massive world fair that they did a lot of those in the Tartarian Empire time period. And it was built as a temporary place just to hold this massive exhibition. It was huge. You could have fit a whole forest in Crystal Palace, right? And then they destroyed it with a fire. So then, as well, you've got Alexandra Palace, again in London. This time we're in North London. And Alexandra Palace was known as the People's Palace. It was built in 1873. 16 days, 1/6, just over 2 weeks after it was built, it got burnt down in a fire. Okay, it got burnt down in a fire again. They rebuilt it. They rebuilt Alexandra Palace, and then fast forward again to 1980, it got destroyed again by another fire. What's going on here? Like, you're trying to tell me these fires just keep happening randomly and destroying these Tartarian massive buildings. And the main narrative is that these were Victorian buildings. But when you look at the details and you look at the design of these buildings, you can see there were much more to them. They were much more grand. Have a look for yourself.
Alexandra Palace is a Grade 2 listed building now used as an entertainment and sports venue in North London, situated between Wood Green and Muswell Hill. The designers and planners intended Alexandra Palace to be a counterpart in North London to the Crystal Palace of Sydenham in South East London. In 1859, Owen Jones draws the first designs for a Palace of the People that was to be constructed in North London. Owen Jones is best known for his design work for the construction of the Crystal Palace, which is a building that is very questionable. The reason for this is there has never been any clarified logistical explanation as to how Crystal Palace was constructed. Perhaps the structure of Crystal Palace was already there, because it was an example of Tartarian architecture and the old world. The huge stained glass window of Alexandra Palace is a historic work of artistry. It was apparently installed in 1873, but was then destroyed by fire 16 days later. Colours in the original stained glass were very vibrant, but like so much of the rebuilding which occurred within Alexandra Palace from the 16th of February 1875 to the 30th of April 1875, its structure and design were then repurposed. So Alexandra Palace is now completely different to what its original purpose would have been.
You see the difference between Alexandra Palace before the fire and after the fire? There's a big differences. Even when I've been to Alexandra Palace myself a few times, because I'm a North London girl, I grew up in North London. So I've been to Alexandra Palace myself a few times, and there is a weird feel to it when you're walking around in that place. I used to go ice skating there back in the day, but when you're not in the ice rink, there's when they have exhibitions and things, you just feel a weird atmosphere in there. I don't know, if you've been to Alexandra Palace, put it in the comments. It does feel a bit eerie. Not in a bad way, just in a Like, what really went down here? That's the vibe I got. Or maybe I'm just a weirdo. Well, I am a weirdo, so it could be that. So yeah, put in the comments what you think, if you have been to Alexandra Palace, if you've explored it. What do you think of that space? Because I think there's way more than what meets the eye to Alexandra Palace. So it's not just Alexandra Palace and these buildings, but globally around the world, the Tartarian Empire in that era of time, the buildings had some very specific features, such as these grand domes and these spires at the top, which were known as antennas. Check this out.
Taj Mahal, India, 1648. St. Basil's Cathedral, Russia, 1561. Church of the Resurrection, Russia, 1652. Ubudiyah Mosque, Malaysia, 1917. Taksim Military Barracks, Turkey, 1806. St. Maria Ramersdorf Church, Germany, 1792. St. Simeon of the Wonderful Mountain Church, Germany, 1874. Badshahi Mosque, Pakistan, 1672. Fuller Block, Springfield, USA, 1887.
So you're seeing domes, you're seeing spires, you're seeing stars and all this specific work and architecture. Are you believing that it's just for decoration, or is there something deeper behind that? And these buildings were built around the world, around the globe. What were these antennas about? You know, these great spires. And then you have also bells, giant bells, the church bells that used to ring. Why have they all been gone and been removed? Why have they taken them all down? And you know what the mainstream narrative is, which I personally think is laughable? They said they removed all the bells because they had to use the material to make bullets for the wars. What kind of nonsense is that? And people believe this rubbish. Come on, man, come on. Why would you take giant bells, of all the things you could use? You said, let's climb up on all these churches and old buildings, get the bells down, and melt them down into little bullets to be used for of all the things. Why that? But there is rumors that the sound frequency of those bells is very powerful. So again, they're showing us truth in plain sight. If you've seen the movie Spider-Man, where he's fighting with Venom, and then there's that scene where they're ringing the bells, and Venom, he literally can't take it. He can't take it when that vibration rings. So it's known to be very healing, the sounds of the vibrations, that frequency. I don't know the full details about it, but it's very suspicious to me that they got rid of all the bells. I find that weird. Put in the comments what you think of that. Do you believe it was used for bullets? Really? Really? Right. Now let's fast forward to the late 1800s and talk about Nikola Tesla. Mr. Tesla had a very good understanding of free energy, which is what the Tartarian Empire are known to have been using at that time. They used to harness free energy, which is why they had the spires, the antennas on these buildings. You know. So Nikola Tesla spoke about ether, and the ether was what they had that they were harnessing apparently in these grand, majestic palaces and buildings where they had these big fireplaces. They told us they were fireplaces. Apparently they weren't fireplaces, but that's what they used to harness the ether to conduct and use electricity freely. So Nikola Tesla explained that ether is an energy source that's around us, around the whole atmosphere, and it's completely free. And we just don't know how to tap into it. Well, he knew how to tap into it, but you know, we don't know. Because think about it like this. Vicious score. Yeah, I agree. So my intuition just said to me, if they allowed us to tap into this free energy source, it would completely ruin the mainstream energy industry that is worth trillions of pounds. Do you think they would allow us to have free energy? Look at this.
But he won't give up here either. On the contrary, he realizes that wireless power transmission requires an even more powerful source. He manages to convince industrialist J.P. Morgan to invest $150,000 to build a monster called the Wardenclyffe Tower. He says the 57-meter transmitter will be the first in the world to send a radio signal across the Atlantic. In reality, he has no such plans. He continues to research his power transmission to no avail. Then a year later, when the Italian Marconi famously transmits the letter S across the Atlantic with a cheaper Morse code transmitter, Morgan runs out of patience and cuts off all payments to Tesla. Although he claims that Marconi is using 17 of his patents, he must abandon his tower and sell it to pay off his debts.
So Nikola Tesla actually built a tower that transmitted free wireless energy around the world. It worked. It worked, guys. But guess what? Good old JP Morgan, who is still around to this day, a massive banking institution, who have interest in obviously the oil and tech and multiple industries. JP Morgan said, oh, hang on about, mate. You're messing with our money here because the oil industry is taking a hit. We're going to have to shut this down, mate. So what did they do? They shut down Nikola Tesla's tower. And then what happened to poor old Nikola Tesla? He died. He died in obscurity. This is indicating to me that clearly there was a lot going on at that time that they didn't want us to know about. Electric vehicles were around. Free energy in the ether was around. But they've hidden this from us, guys. Ether was known as one of the fifth element of the world, actually. So obviously we've been taught that there's 4 elements, which is air, water, fire, and earth. But the number 5 one is apparently ether. Apparently this was known back in those days, but it's been hidden from us. But then, like I always say, they will reveal the truth in plain sight. That movie that came out in the 90s starring Bruce Willis and Chris Tucker. What was it called? The Fifth Element. Look at this.
Every 5,000 years.
Remove the shield.
When the 3 planets are in eclipse, the black hole like a door is open. Evil comes, spreading terror and chaos.
There's nothing that can stop this.
There is only one thing.
Perfect.
The Mondachi One have in their possession the only weapon to defeat evil. 4 elements, gathered around the 5th.
The 5th element was in our face the whole time. Obviously in that movie they had the girl that was like an extraterrestrial represent the 5th element that was able to bring everything together. But I'm telling you guys, you need to go back and watch these films because they're telling you things in plain sight because they have to tell you the truth. As well as that, there is the theory about the Cabbage Patch Kids. I don't know that much about it, but apparently in that era, again around the 1800s, there's suddenly a whole bunch of orphans. A whole heap of orphans. Now, why would there be a whole heap of orphans around that time? So my intuition just said to me, were these orphans actually the descendants of the civilization of adults that had been wiped out in the mud floods? Because that would make sense to me. Because I don't see people just randomly just handing out their, handing their babies into an orphanage. Well, it wasn't a thing. Clearly, the parents had gone and they needed to obviously repopulate and restart or reset the earth at this time. So that's why there's a theory of the Cabbage Patch Kids. Please go deeper into that, look into it and try and understand more. I will look into it when I get some more time, but it's just interesting. Interesting. And then there's the theory about the mental institutions. Again, around this time, there were these massive mental institutions that were built up. You know what? Look at this.
One of the tools used in the process of erasing our history is what we know as lunatic asylums. Now, if you're new to this topic, most people, when they think of lunatic asylums, they think of the movies or what's now called psychiatric hospitals for people with severe mental disorders. These institutions have a history, and most of these old asylums are these Tartarian, old world looking buildings that have been taken over and repurposed. You find very similar themes with the same common story, and they all use similar terminology such as being founded or established in 1804 or 1820, but what if these were not created during the 1800s, but were actually taken over after some type of reset?
So as you can see, there were massive mental asylums built around the world at this time. The question is, why? Because the population wasn't, according to the numbers of population, it wasn't warranted. The mainstream narratives say that it was mental health reform. Now we all know mental health hasn't really become a thing in mainstream concerns until I'd say about the year probably 2010 was when they started taking mental health more seriously, not in the 1800s. The theory on the mental institutions, what people are saying, is that it was they were large places for them to do testing and experiments to reset the population. Again, makes sense when you think about MK Ultra, which is mind control. They were probably doing a whole heap of that in there because they had to prepare them for the next new society and feed them narratives and feed them a bunch of lies about what's really happening and where we are as a society at that time. About everything, there was a lot of fires involved. So Tartaria disappeared from maps in the 1800s. At the same time, the Great Fires destroyed Chicago, San Francisco, Moscow, entire city centers wiped out conveniently. World fairs presented incredible stone palaces as temporary locations. They had time to be building these big stone palaces for a temporary location. Really? Tartarian Empire wasn't just some local little thing. It was a global, massive thing because there's evidence of Tartarian buildings around the world. Here's what we've heard before. The mainstream narrative, what they tell us in school, what they tell us in society, what you'll see on the news. They say Tartaria never existed. It's a mix of Russian geography and a myth. They say mud floods were local landslides, not evidence of buried cities. They say star forts and giant cathedrals were European engineering, not free energy grids. And they say fires like Alexandria Palace destroyed buildings due to poor safety. There was no cover-ups. I'll leave it with you to ponder what you believe. I've shared some very interesting images, videos, theories. My take is that there was clearly a civilization of the Tartarian Empire that were way more advanced than us, and there's been a cover-up in the timing and in our history and what really was happening. And this was just over 200 years ago, and they've worked damn hard to cover this up. But the truth is a thing that will always come out. It might take 2 minutes, it might take 2 years, it might take 200 years, but the truth, it will always come out. So please share with me in the comments any ideas you have about what's going on with the Tartarian Empire, any other stories, evidence, things that you've seen or experienced. I want to hear it all. I want to hear it all. So thank you so much for watching Heard It All Before. Next week we're going to take a deeper dive. Literally, we're going under the sea, under the sea, under the sea, under the sea. What was under the sea? What's really going on under the sea? We're going to be getting into that next week. So please follow, like, subscribe, and do all that jazz. Share this with anyone that you know is a critical thinker or has a curious mind and wants to explore and answer questions that they don't want us to ask.
Intuition.
Thank you for joining me on Heard It All Before. I will see you next week.
Podcast.
Let's go.
Heard It All Before.